Hello everyone, thank you very much for being with us today. After our 40 sessions welcoming 4,000 participants from all over the world, we are honored to welcome you to our second season today with none other than Thierry Labro on the do's and don'ts when dealing with journalists. A little bit about our fantastic speaker's background. Thierry Labro is one of the leading and most polarizing figures in the business of journalism with over 3 decades of experience writing for international newspapers. In his early career, Thierry was focusing on sports before venturing into covering European politics and later the economics column for the Luxembourg board. Today, Thierry Labro is one of the leading writers about the scene of entrepreneurship, startups, and fintech in Luxembourg, and is a recognized and respected voice within this space. On the moderator side, we have my dear colleague Manon, head of marketing and communication at the LHoFT. She's one of the forces behind driving LHoFT's mission and reach out to local and international stakeholders. From organizing showcases to leading delegations abroad, she's also brought to life Catapult Africa, an inclusion acceleration program. In 2018, she was awarded Young Markham Talent of the Year by Marketers and has been relentless ever since. Ladies and gentlemen, Thierry Manon, the screens are yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Anthony, for the great presentation. As usual, so much energy. I'm ready to box now. Thank you so much. And thank you behind your screen for being with us for this exciting digital event with Thierry Labro. Hello, Thierry.
Hello, Manon. Hello, everyone. Thank you to be here.
Yes, thank you for joining us in our new studio at the LHoFT that is improving day after day. So for those one that's following us, I think you can notice that. So very exciting digital event today, discussing the do and don'ts when dealing with a journalist. Thierry is a very well-known journalist here in Luxembourg, working previously for Luxembourg Vote and now for Paperjam. As Anthony said, this is a very interactive session, so please ask all your questions, and Thierry is here to answer.
To try to answer.
Just a little point before we start. We have a meter here, so we are safe with the physical distance, so no mask, but safe here. First point, Thierry, that I would like to start with, and you confirm to me this number. Paperjam receive every day around 800 press release or mail with news, like inside directly in the editorial room. So 800 is large, it's very big in terms of information processing. And so it means that your news, that is your priority, might be not the priority for the journalist because there is so much. So as a starting point, Thierry, if I had to ask, what is journalism for you in 3 words? And also, how do you prioritize the news? What is news for you?
Okay, that's great. You start with the most complicated questions.
Yes, as usual.
So I can end with the most simple one.
Yeah.
Now, journalism is about telling stories to an audience. So you first have to try to find the right stories for your right audience. If you don't manage it, whether you don't have any audience, whether you will never find a good story. How to do this? It's a question of experience, I guess. You know what you want to cover for stories. So to Paperjam, for example, we have a focus on business relationship, on these kinds of area. And then inside the redaction, each of us, so we only are 10 journalists, around 10 journalists.
10 journalists, yeah.
So each of us has a sort of focus. Yeah. So my focus, for example, is innovation, startup, fintech, and things like this. So that means that every time we are receiving some information, I have a particularly look on the email regarding those areas. That's one point. Our organization, daily organization, is we have every day one man in charge to manage the daily business, and the other who have their appointments, their press conferences, their topic to cover, and so on. And that's how we we do it.
Yeah, so like you said, you are also a few times during the week on duty, kind of. Like, so you start, I don't know, I think at 6 o'clock in the morning, this is very early, to treat basically all the news and dispatch.
Yeah, the fact is, to Paperjam, we have two very big points in the day. That's the newsletter at 8 o'clock and the newsletter at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's why we have to start 2 hours before, around 2 hours before, to see what happened during the night and between the last newsletter and the morning.
Yeah.
So the idea is to try to see what entered into our mailbox, but also what other medias in Luxembourg and everywhere are doing.
Okay, interesting. How do you do that? How do you where your focus goes when you see?
It's an old way to do journalism, but it's the best. We are first focused on Luxembourg ecosystem. So first we look what happened in Luxembourg, and then what's happening in a more large area. If you have a very big news around Trump or something like this, then you will have to do something about it. But we are mostly concentrated on Luxembourgish ecosystem.
Okay, and then to follow up on the news, when we are more on the press relations, so press release, so you receive every day. What would be a good press release for you? Are you going to look just at the topic or the name or who has sent the news, or you will also decide on when you start to read a bit further the press release?
It's a combination of all of this. So we first look who is sending the email, because when you have an audience, sometimes the public relations from other countries, they say, okay, this guy is working on startup. I will send him some press release. It's about startup anywhere. I'm sure he will have an interest in this area, and that's not the reality. So, for example, we let this on side, and we concentrate ourselves on Luxembourgish ecosystem, and that means that's the first. That's maybe one of the first points. Then, if you are managing this on a daily basis, you have a sort of knowledge about where the company are standing, what is new, what is important, because you can see the difference between the last news they sent to you, the amount, for example, that they receive from an investor, what decision they took. You have an idea why it could be important or not.
And how do you react to a news? So you receive the news, you know it's urgent, that you want maybe to release it first. So how do you balance the fact to release the news and maybe to hold it off and say, okay, I'm going to reach out to the marketing manager or the CEO to dig further and maybe then to do a longer story?
It's funny, sometimes they send you an email, say, for immediate release.
Immediate
It's
release,
urgent,
yes.
It's an emergency, you have to stop everything else.
Yeah.
But we never stop everything else for this. So, okay, we receive the mail, we understand if it's important or not, if we have time to deal with it or not. And the second factor, is the press release well written? Does it contain, for example, a picture or a video or a link, a phone number or something like this, so that if we have questions, we are able to join someone, a qualified person rather than a PR itself, because you have to understand that PR, they want to keep the control on their customer. So they try to oblige you to join first the PR, and the PR will manage the relationship with the CEO, for example, of the company. Honestly, I prefer to go directly to the CEO. I don't see why I have to ask the PR, please, can I contact the CEO to have more information about this? And
you don't think that you can address to the PR they're actually going to answer your question, because he or she knows the subject, knows the company?
That's not the case every time. So we really can see two different sort of PR. The one who is really involved in the topic, and then he has a sort of knowledge. And the other one say, okay, no, I just took a customer, and then I have to ask you a question to the CEO. He's not free for now. You have also specialists who send you communication 5 minutes before leaving. So when you try to call them back, there's nobody anymore to add other questions. Sometimes it's really funny to see how it works.
Okay, so after 15 minutes almost of discussion, so I noticed already two rules. First, press release with a picture identified title, contact points, not just the PR, also maybe a tech person or that can answer the tech question, and not sending and then leaving, being available for the journalist. Okay.
No, it's very surprising sometimes. Last week someone announced something very important, but the guy totally forgot to put a picture inside the press release. And if you sign a very big partnership with a big company, you want to see both sides. And if you don't have the picture with both sides, something is missing. So you have to think about this before sending the press release.
Okay.
And I would like to mention another point.
Yeah, of course, please.
Because we receive press release always built on the same base.
Yes, okay.
So that means we sign a partnership or we raise 1 million, for example. That's the headline of the press release. And then they consider that we understand the technology they are developing.
Okay.
As a journalist, you have to remember that you don't know anything. I don't know anything, never. I don't want to be considered as someone who knows how it goes. I don't know anything. I don't want to know anything. I want to understand what those guys are doing. And if you consider you're a journalist star, then you say, okay, no, I know that. That's not so important. And then you will not see the right point of this press release, of this information. You have to be modest as a journalist. People totally forgot that the journalist, the former word was media. And media comes from Latin period, and it means someone who is in the middle between a story and an audience. And for me, the journalist has to stay back behind the scene just to bring the message to an audience. And I prefer not to know anything about the topic and say, okay, what are they doing? Then, if they explain you what they are doing, they explain with their words. Mm-hmm. And that's a very big problem because we are not speaking the same language. Me, I'm not an expert, and I have to talk to an audience that is not always qualified.
Yeah.
So it's a very difficult situation because for experts, my level of language is never enough. But for my audience, the level of my sentences are too high. So I have to find the balance between the two parts of the story. And for that, I have a very simple way to do it. I use it for 20 years with politicians, with tech guys, with everybody. It works in any situation.
Okay, I'm very curious to hear that.
Very easy. It's to ask them, how will you explain your business to a child who is 6 years old, or, for example, to my grandmother?
Yes.
I remember once I was to a meeting organized by European Commission, and everybody was talking for an hour about technology. It was just impossible to understand if you are not a tech guy. And suddenly I raised the hand. I say, sorry, how would you explain that to my grandmother? Everybody laughed. But then they had to make the exercise, and nobody laughed anymore because they understood it was maybe much more complicated to be simple. Being simple is very complicated.
Indeed, it's very complicated. And when you say writing an article that will be also understood by everybody, you developed recently this newsletter, this trading newsletter that is released on the Friday that focus more on the tech. Is it a way to also maybe release news that are a bit more technical, and or then you always have the same approach? You want always the same level of being understood? For me, you must keep the same level every time, in any occasion, so that people outside are able to understand what you want to do. Even if it's not good enough because your language is not good enough, at least they understand that your strategy is to deliver the same level of content in any occasion. And I think that's more easy to understand. And back to this idea of approaching complex topic, because I mean, fintech is super broad. We can talk about blockchain or artificial intelligence. I mean, this is massive. would you appreciate, for instance, and I know that some marketing manager or even CEO do that, so they send maybe a press release and then indeed they call you maybe and then they will explain in details what they wanted to say or the origin of the story. So my first question is it something that you are looking for? And also how to deal with PR manager that are directly contacting you and via email, via LinkedIn. You told me even recently via Instagram, so all the channel. How do you deal with that?
On the first part of the question, what was that?
Yeah, so the simplification. So yeah.
For the simplification, I prefer to have trusted conversation partners.
Okay.
That means I want to talk about this area about technology for a big while, for a long while, and more and more people are trusting me. Yes. When they trust me, I also trust them by default, because I think trust is, you give trust by default, and if you have a problem, then you change of behavior. So I give trust by default to anyone telling me a story. But in reality, I know who is able to explain some things to me about some area of technology. And if I have a problem to understand a technology, I will call this guy and say, hey, how do you understand this? Where is the key point? What do I have to watch to be sure that the technology is something new, better, more efficient, and something like this? And at the end of the conversation, I know how to ask my question to the startup, the company, the CEO that I have to join. About the relationship with PR, I must say that's also something quite common in terms of trust. There are some people in Luxembourg I'm fully trusting. I could mention some of them, but I'm sure I will forget other one, and that's why I wouldn't like to have problem with them. But I say we have very good PR in Luxembourg, and it's also a question of trust. If one of them call me and say, Thierry, I have this arriving in a few days or in a week, it seems interesting. I don't know if you are interested, but if you are, we could manage a rendezvous. Yes. To take time to talk about this. If I'm trusting them, I'm more open to say, okay, let's do something. And for this, I need trust. That means I don't want to be obliged to talk about a topic I don't want to talk about. Sometimes it happens. People are just want to make marketing, and me, I don't want to make marketing. We have a commercial service in charge to sell sponsored content, sponsored communication. It's a possibility they have. For me, if they want to have this, they have to go by this way. I'm not working on the same base. For example, another point in the press release I can't understand. If you sign a partnership with another company, yes, you will have two quotes. A quote of you, CEO, yeah, and a quote with the partner. Yeah. It's very funny, because 100% of the press release, they are just explaining that the new partner is very happy to work with this guy. He's really happy to invest into the company of this guy. Yeah. The information would be totally the opposite. The information would be, I'm not happy to sign with him, but I did. You see what I mean? Yeah. That's not an information to say that you are happy with this partnership. So sometimes I would prefer, for example, that those new partners explain why they decided to invest or to partner, yeah, where it makes sense or not. Yeah. And it never happened. Never. It never happens. Never happened. Okay. It's only, so I mean they just want to be sure that we have the name of the new CEO, of the partner, of the investor. I think they just want to have the name of the new entrant in the business of the startup. Yeah. Okay. Okay, point noted. So now it's the fee rule. We will do a wrap up, but there is some rules coming up here. Okay, cool. Then back to this question of relationship with the PR, or even then the CEO once again of the firm, or the trusted people, the relationship that you have. You were also telling me that you need to adapt to the channel that the people are using. They're diverse, and I think in our world today, this is more and more. Is it a problem for you that, somebody is contacting on your Instagram? Is there like really no-go? It's email and phone, and
no social media or whatever the platform?
No, I have an open position, but I'm an old journalist in the sense that's 30 years I'm working on a daily basis, so that's very long. I knew the start of digitalization of media. That was very funny to see that and to see where we are today. That's a very long and fantastic trip to see.
Can you give us a bit of history there?
Yeah, I remember when I started, I was a sports correspondent, and I had to write some short stories for a newspaper, and that was really, they say, okay, you just have 10 lines, so the 11th was a problem, because the digitalized page was blocked on certain formats.
Okay.
Today, I'm able to publish the story directly from my phone.
Yes.
Anywhere, with a video, with a picture, with a data, I can do what I want on a mobility situation, and that's totally different.
So you are in I don't know, in a public transportation in the morning, and you will continue to
Sometimes
edit.
I do. Sometimes I do.
Okay.
And about the omni-channel situation, I was telling you yesterday, a guy contacted me through Instagram.
Instagram,
he sent me a link of something he published the day before on LinkedIn to ask me, are you interested in this content, Thierry? And that was funny. I said I should have answered through WhatsApp to say that I put a message on Messenger to answer to this message on Instagram. Yeah. It's a little bit surprising, but okay, it's okay. It's sometimes difficult to manage all the canals on a daily basis, but I think the journalist must reply on the canal used by his source.
Okay.
Because that means that this guy is more comfortable with this tool, so you have to stay on his level.
Okay. Yeah, but that's a nice way of approaching. So then also you keep the history and okay. And so back to this let's say relationship once again with the PR. How do you feel about like you said, the guy just sent you a link. Sometimes it's not about the piece of news that I want to publish. It's just, oh, by the way, did you see that? Or this partner has done that. Did you? How do you react to people sending you info, not just for them to publish, but just as part of the relationship management as well?
I feel always honored when someone send me some feedback, general feedback, say, okay, Thierry, it's not to publish a story, but maybe that could interest you. I know you're interested for this. I feel always very well when I receive those kinds of mail, because for me that means that they identify that I was interested in this, and they are interested in me, and me, I consider that I have to be interested in them.
Yes.
So it's a sort of exchange of interest, and I can improve my own skills. And that's always really powerful to have this. I have some of those people, they are sending me an email, or they call me and say, hey Thierry, you know this, you should have a look on this, it's very interesting. Yeah. And that's very powerful. That's because on another part of my job, my daily routine is also to manage more than 400 sources through 2 different tools I use for years. Yeah. And I used to watch this tool during the day to say what is going out of the news, what is going out of the press, offices and so on, just to see where are the trends, what are the important news going out and so on, to see, okay, do I have to do something about intelligence, artificial intelligence and housing or smart cities or anything?
We might, I'm just doing a little parenthesis over there, we might have a good tool for you coming up via the LHoFT, because we will soon launch our own news app where you will be able to select topics of your choice, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, insurtech, with a very large sources and check every day upcoming news on those specific topics. So maybe you will use the LHoFT news app, right?
I'm really careful with the app or solution where you are obliged to select some topic.
Yes.
Because you could miss some information on the right or on the left side it can be really dangerous.
No, I meant like generally about artificial intelligence, but this is an help and not something like that will replace your
knowledge is a very difficult thing to manage.
But that's the thing. So when we start the conversation about journalism, there was like few words coming up like, okay, knowledge, news, but also facts. We also talk a lot about alternative facts. So you explain a bit how you treat the news, but how do you also verify everything and make sure that what you're going to publish is fully accurate? Or sometimes you also take, the challenge and say, okay, let's go ahead.
No challenge.
No challenge.
No challenge. So I think journalists don't have to do any challenge. It's not a question of challenge.
Yeah.
If the news it seems to be too beautiful, too big, or something like this, you can't have any challenge with this. You have to make your job and to check.
Okay.
And if you want to check, the first point is to go back to the roots, go back to the source of the news. Where does it come from?
Yeah.
And then maybe you can try to find other content to add, to give context, to show that you have knowledge about this and so on. But first, going back to the source.
Okay.
Always the primary source.
Yeah.
That's why I can't understand why, for example, I was thinking about this before the webinar. I can't understand why some media have special fact checker journalists.
Okay, so you don't like that.
No, really not. Because journalism is fact
checker.
checking.
Okay, yeah.
So what does that mean? That means that if you are a media obliged to build a special redaction of fact checker, that means that you don't trust your own brand. So instead of
put it like this, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what do we see if we're going a step further? What do we see? We see that the big brands, most of the big brands, they don't have any fact checker, specific fact checker.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they tried, but they let this disappear after a few months. They don't have fact checker.
Yeah.
The brand is enough to show that the information brought by this canal is sure, is reliable, is authenticated, sourced, and so on. For example, that's why in Luxembourg, I'm sorry, we don't have any fact checker. When you are going to the site of the LHoFT, for example, nobody would imagine to say, is that true or not?
Yeah.
And for all the Luxembourgish media, you don't need this thing. And the problem, for me, the problem comes from a mistrust feeling. What happened 10 years ago, before the social media and the digital tools? A journalist had to listen to stories.
Yes.
But also to listen to people who were not agree with the mainstream. Mm-hmm. And they were obliged to listen to those people out of the mainstream. So they were listening, say, oh, I'm not agree with the 5G in Luxembourg, that's not good for health, and so on. They were listening, and they were embedding this content on their mainstream newspaper. Today, it's not the case anymore. And for example, that's something that Alain Berwick, the former CEO of RTL Luxembourg, pointed a few weeks ago with me. We have to embed content that comes from people who are not agree with the mainstream line of the media.
Okay.
If we don't, they will use the social media, blogs, or anything to push their content by themselves. And that's how the industry of fake news is building its own legend. That's because journalists who are here to listen to the society, to the difference between people, the difference of point of view, and so on, they are not listening anymore to the entire society. They choose only a part of the society.
So for you, once again, back to good journalism and a good article, it will always have a balanced view. Yeah. So one point and another.
You have to.
Yeah, okay.
You have to. And sometimes you have to listen. You have just to listen in the society and say, okay, those guys around the 5G, why are they against the 5G? Why? On which base? Why? And what do they expect of the debate engaging around this theme? Even if you are not agree with them, you have to give them place. If you give them place, they will not go out of you to publish their own story with fake news and so on.
And back to this idea of like traceability and addressing directly to our fintech. For you, is it good, for instance, or would you consider one fintech on its website that has the historical of all the press release? Is it something that you're going back on the website to check?
I do. If I can find some press release talking about their history, I do sometimes go there for to make research. Yesterday, I was working on a fintech, a very strange fintech.
Strange.
I was contacted by the guy, and since I accepted to talk with him, he never answered to me anymore.
Okay.
That's not a good idea with me, because then I spend time to see why this guy disappeared.
And see, always answer to Thierry. That's important.
No, but it was funny. But I dig,
yes.
And I discover a lot of things. I'm not sure this guy will have this business for a long while. Huh?
And so back to this digging and this. We spoke about journalism. So investigation. What are you looking for? And I guess you're going to give a chance to this guy to reply and say. Please comment, and then you tell then it's going to be published before. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Every time we try to do it before. I said we try to do it before because we see in Luxembourg the situation changed a few years ago. It becomes more and more complicated to have the good answer in a good timeline.
What does it mean?
10 years ago, if I was contacting someone, say I need an answer, I had the answer in the 30 minutes after this call.
Okay.
Today, sometimes I need to wait 3 days. But the fact is that the world changed.
So in the area of social media, people take longer to answer.
Some people take longer to answer. Then there's more and more sort of pre-risk management.
Mm-hmm.
So they are fearing to have problems with your article. So they need to stay safe, to try to stay safe.
And so then back to this question of being safe and risk management and so on. How often have you so I'll take an example of Fintech or whatever that are going to call you back for this type of article, and how you deal with requests after the article has been published for modification or adding something?
It's a case to case.
It's a case to case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can understand sometimes they don't think to an impact that they see when the owner, when the investor, when customer. Sometimes they are talking about a customer, for example.
Yeah.
But they didn't think that they need a disclosure of the customer before explaining this. So sometimes I say, okay, they started a good cooperation with this customer, and then they receive a call of the customer say, oh, I didn't authorize you to publish this. And then he's coming back to say, Thierry, I have a problem with this customer.
Okay.
So there are different sort of feedback in this case, because with a startup, of course, I don't want to kill any startup.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be comprehensive. That's young entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody understand that there are young entrepreneurs that need more support than other things. But it's different with big companies.
Yes, of course.
When I'm dealing with Boeing or with Airbus, for example, it's their problem. I have my answer, their answer. They have many departments to manage this, so that's not the same music.
Of course, of course. And in your daily routine, so we were talking about people sending you some info and knowledge, and of course then you check what is relevant or not. In terms of the other approach, do you sometimes will reach out to this or this person just to engage the conversation? And it may not result of an article, but really to consider that to build knowledge, and maybe in 1 month or 2 months' time, then an article comes up. Is it how you build the trending, for instance?
The trending, I based it on curation on one side and on discussion with people on the other side. But it's very complicated because it's complicated to have a conversation of an hour with a CEO of a company, and then he say, when will we talk together to make an article? I say, okay, that's 1 hour we are talking, guy. And, okay, but that was not to write an article. That was only to have a conversation with you. Me, I prefer to have the spontaneity of the entrepreneur. That means that I am discovering the info when we are talking together for the article. If I talk with him before, he has time to prepare itself and so on. Okay, it's good on the side, but I lose the spontaneity, dimension, and I prefer this one.
Okay.
Because that's another development of media. More and more, some news will be treated by robot.
Yes.
And what sort of new news will be treated by robot? Only news where the journalist is not able to bring humanity in the article. So it's not a question of information, it's a question of storytelling.
Yes.
The robot will not be able to do this. If you want to keep your job, to keep your power, to keep your articles production, you need to bring humanity in articles.
Something a bit more than just the facts.
Yeah.
But that is not an opinion.
No, not, it's not an opinion. But being able to see if the guy is nervous or if everything seems to be okay for him, he's funny, he's amazing, he's making joke. If you have a CEO making joke one after another one,
yeah.
you know that everything is going good for them.
Yeah.
I met an entrepreneur that was so sad that you know that something is going wrong. Yeah. And if the entrepreneur doesn't want to share this with you, you say that the trust is not there.
Okay, and then that's where you start digging.
Yes, yes, but in reality, if you think, that's another point. In Luxembourg, we don't think to this topic correctly, to my opinion, because
okay.
we are never talking about fail, disaster, and so on.
Yeah,
that's a pity. That's a pity, because me, I can admit that someone is failing in making a business. Why not? If the market is not ready for the technology, if he's not able to draw customer or thing like this, it's okay. And I think we should try to share these experiences also, because young entrepreneurs, they need to have those kinds of experience in mind. Say, okay, I have to take care about this. I have to take care about my team, how to build my team, how to attract customers. Oh, I remember you wrote something about this story. Yeah. Oh, maybe we should be careful on this.
So then we are touching a point here. It's you building your article and the news you tell to bring value.
Yes, but value is very large word. You can put whatever you want in the value word.
Well, value, I guess it's to sell more papers or more click on the articles. There is maybe that on this side, but there is also value for the community. So how? I
think I do the opposite. I don't try to work on a click, please on my article.
Okay.
Sometimes I do, but it's very rare. In generally, I write the story. I try to be balanced, to be neutral. I try to add some information coming from studies, from articles, from quotes, and so on, to try to feed the culture of entrepreneur. But I don't want click. That's not my culture.
Okay. I was looking at the question. I think I'm going to take the one from Cassandra. If you agree, Cassandra, that's a point regarding press conferences. In this COVID world, there is no more there is no more real event. There is almost no more real press conferences. So how do you deal with press conferences, and is it something like, oh, I need to go there, but or is it interesting for you? Is it something that you're looking for, and is it something that you are missing currently? I
had some this week, so they are not. They are digitalized.
No,
physical one.
Physical press.
That was really funny. I can explain. I can tell that.
Okay.
But that's not my problem. That's the politician problem. That's why I can. I was with two ministers, and that was really funny, because one of them. Paulette Leonard, she always accepts to answer to 10,000 questions. Okay, maybe she doesn't like it, but she do. The other minister, he had no wish to answer to any question. So every time a journalist was asking something new, I say, okay, now we are okay. Can we leave? and the scene repeats itself for 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. The minister says, okay, are we okay? When we are invited to a press conference, I consider that I can ask 10,000 questions.
Okay.
That's the point. A press conference is to ask questions. I know in Luxembourg, most of press conferences are really quiet, but the fact is, if you are invited to a press conference, it's to ask questions and to have answers. Yes. And if you don't understand something, or if you want to have more information about another part of the topic, it's the possibility to do it. So I understand that some PR or some marketing officer and so on, instead of answering to 10 journalists and spending hours with them, because when one is finished, the other one will start and so on, I understand they prefer to organize a press conference.
Yeah.
I prefer a press conference.
You prefer, in terms of...
It's open, but we have time to ask all our questions.
Okay. So maybe regarding time, we are getting closer to the Q&A session. I have maybe a last question before moving to the Q&A. You give a number of do and don'ts, of rules or expectation. If you had to do like a top 5, what it would be?
Top 5 of what? Do?
Of do, of course.
A general one would be try to install trust.
So trust.
Trust is basic. Try to be clear on your technology. To explain your technology to a child or to a grandmother, I think it's a good point. Often they do it on a sentence, but you have to oblige them to do it on 10 sentences.
Yes.
Because after one, they say, oh, that's not like this, I prefer this sentence. I say, no, continue on this. So explaining its technology, it's great. Maybe try to add value. If you start yourself by adding value to the information you want to bring to the media, adding value is explaining technology, but giving a way to talk with the guy you want to reach. It's also bringing picture, a video, or anything that could help to have a better understanding and a better article in the end.
So for instance, if a fintech sends you a press release, but also add, for instance, a video that explains its technology, that's a media that you might use in embed the article.
If I can embed it, often I try to embed it. Because I think often they do the video for really non-initiate. That's really simple. And I think it's also a value for my readers, so that they can understand faster what is it about. The other thing, for example, is don't write to a former journalist of the redaction. Sometimes I receive a press release addressed to a journalist that left the company for 3 or 4 years. What does that mean?
Okay.
Do you imagine that I am happy with it?
Yeah.
Of course I'm not okay. It's not a question of ego. It's just that you are showing that you are really not interested in the media. That's what it shows.
So know the media space.
And maybe we can also go a step further. Target the journalists you want to reach.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you read the news every day in Luxembourg and around Luxembourg, you should know who could be interested in the news. Because I think unpersonal communication is never a good thing. Yeah. Maybe it's better to say, oh, Thierry, I sent you this email. I don't know exactly if you are interested in this information or not. If not, maybe could you recommend us someone that could be interesting?
Okay. And another rule?
Another rule?
Or we go back to the question. I see that Andrea, you're online.
Hi everyone. Hi Thierry and Manon. Thank you so much for such a super insightful session.
Thank you,
I wasn't
Andrea.
expecting anything less. I wasn't disappointed. Now I really like what you said, Thierry, about the journalists taking a step back and not having preconceived opinions about their topics and being just curious. And there have been times in Luxembourg when I had to deal with journalists who asked questions but with the answer already in mind. And no matter how much, I quote facts and figures and data to explain that the situation on the ground is different. Well, mobile payments is also a very niche topic and not everyone understands fully the inner workings. But they would still end up publishing or, turning around what I say to match their initial theory. So how do you, what's your advice on how to better manage them, how to better educate them, or how to, better get
To educate journalists, it's a really complicated issue. Yes. I don't know. I guess sometimes I saw some initiatives, a very interesting initiative. I remember Banque Centrale of Luxembourg, for example, for a while, they've built some session around economics, basic of economics for journalists. So that was, I don't know, 2 or 3, not webinar, but meeting, physical meeting to talk about this topic. It's a good way to do it. In this period, I think it's not a secret that Post is organizing some sessions for journalists. Last time it was around 5G, next time it should be around cybersecurity. And in a way that's interesting for generalists. We all are generalists in Luxembourg. We don't really have specialized journalists. So I think that's an efficient way to do. I don't know. I know that me personally, I'm every year I'm following some courses in cybersecurity, IoT, Fintech, and so on, with solutions like Classroom, like different educational solutions. I can imagine that LHoFT in the next future could have these kinds of sessions, not only for journalists, but for potential investor or institutional. It's quite crazy sometimes if I'm talking with bankers, I'm talking about fintech. Some of them that don't know anything about some fintech, and that's not good for the place. So there are many ways to organize the education of journalists, but it's a very complicated issue.
Yeah, education is definitely a long road. I think we are all working on this, but yes.
In a face-to-face base, Andrea, I would say what I remember about my own educational courses is to ask for feedback. You ask for feedback. That means you deliver some way to see the situation, so I'm Andrea, I would like to explain you what I mean about this and so on. But at the end, do you check that the people receive what you bring to him? You have to check that this guy understood what you said.
Yeah.
And I include myself in this. That means sometimes people are telling me, Thierry, you totally, what you wrote was totally wrong. How is it possible that you are writing such things? I say, maybe I don't understand the things. Maybe you were not clear enough. So help me to be clear. That's an advice I often give to young journalists. The first time someone is calling you to say, oh, Thierry, I'm really fed up. What a fucking stupid article you wrote. As a journalist, as a young journalist, they say, oh, I will have problem. How do I manage this? And then I say to young journalists, take this as an opportunity. It's a fantastic opportunity. My experience is when someone is not satisfied with your article, you can build a relationship like you would never have been able to build without this. So that means the first thing is say, okay, I'm sorry. Maybe I was not efficient enough. How do we deal with the fact that you are not happy? How do we deal with it? How can I manage this? And then give me the comprehension of your topic.
Okay, Andrea, thank you so much. Another question on the line, Anthony, maybe?
Yeah, so we have Camille. Camille, are you with
Yes.
us?
Yes, I'm with you. Hi. Hello, Thierry and Manon.
Hello, Camille.
Hello, Camille.
Hi. Thank you for this seminar. I wanted Thierry's opinion about the press release, actually, because I sometimes feel that people think it's mandatory and that we always have to send press releases, but sometimes isn't it, easier to just call you and say, okay, maybe I have this information, would you be interested to talk about it with the CEO, even if we don't have any press release, because it's not like an official communication, What do you think about that? Is the press release really important?
Camille, I know you, and Camille is one of the exemplar PR of Luxembourg. And asking this question, she knows that she has another method very good one.
Very good
also.
method, yeah.
She understands every time I ask her something that maybe I am preparing an article about a topic or a man, and each time I call her to say I would like to do something, she say okay, I will manage this for you. And every time I had the rendezvous with the guy, or I had the comprehension of the topic, and that's a way to do, Camille. Yes, the press release is not something that you are obliged to do. It doesn't bring value in any circumstances. Honestly, if the journalist and you are in a trust relationship, he could understand that, okay, Thierry, I'm calling you because I think I have a story that could interest you. I will listen to you, and if I have time, interest, and so on, maybe I will do something more interesting for your customer than reading and resuming a press release. Yes, that's true.
Okay, and just what about the client directly, maybe? Because, for example, I mean, yes, we do have a trust relationship, but sometimes the companies, they don't really know you, you don't know them either. So should they send the press release, or should they contact you and just ask for, maybe an interview directly, or? If people are coming from nowhere, what do I do first? First I'm talking to them, and I used to talk to anybody for years. But as soon as the conversation is over, I will go and check who I talk to, what they are doing, and so on. So it's difficult to give an answer by advance. It's not because someone is calling me that I will write something about him. That's why I prefer a trusted person, whether coming directly from the company, because then I know that maybe there's something to do. It's really difficult to answer to this question. Yeah, I understand.
And sometimes you have people that they are not showing their real interest. They have interest, but not the one they are mentioning to you. So you have to be really careful. When it's too easy, there's a problem. There's no easy situation. Mm-hmm. If the story that someone brings to you is too easy, there is a problem behind the story. An easy story, that it doesn't exist.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Camille.
Thank you, Camille. Bye.
Do we have another question on the line? We have a few minutes left before closing.
Darren, are you still with us?
Yes.
Hey, Darren.
Darren.
Manon,
Hey.
Just literally a quick one, Thierry. So how do you fact check technology companies? Let's say they make this audacious claim of we're the next generation AI, machine learning company, etc. How do you actually fact check that they are what they say that they're doing? Because people nowadays can create a front end, show you what it's going to look like, and talk to you and sell you this big story around how they're the next big AI machine learning piece. But how do you fact check it? How do you say that that is correct? So how does that work?
It's a very difficult question. No? You know that's a difficult question. But I know that you will showcase your technology to investors. You will showcase your technology to potential customer. You will showcase your technology to institutional. And I have many contacts in many companies like those three ones. And if I have a doubt about the company, about the technology, or if I'm not able to understand, because modestly, in many of these futuristic technology, I'm not able to understand them. For me, it's okay not to understand technologies. But I have many opportunities to say, okay, what do you think about the business Darren is doing? How can I really understand the value of this technology? And sometimes I have many secret sources, and I will not publicly talk about these secret sources. But one of the recipes is to talk to the technology to a concurrent, to another company working on the same sort of technology. And if you do it with 3 or 4 other tech companies on the same business, they will say, oh, yes, I saw what he's doing. It's very interesting, but, and do you think you are better than him on this topic? Oh, I wouldn't say that. But maybe he's not able to attract customer, or he's too expensive, or we are more fast to the market, and so on. And after after a while, you are able to come back to the CEO, come back to you, Darren, say, okay, but how do you do to go to customers? It's cost burning to do like this. Why did you choose this methodology? And I think with this conversation, we can go deeper. So I don't say I'm doing this job in any occasion, but when I have a doubt about the technology, that's the same remark as I just said before. There is no beautiful story by default. If the story is too beautiful, there is a problem. Because I meet start-upper every day now for 3 years, and honestly, we are all doing the same thing we were doing before on another way. We try to attract new customers or to find new way to develop our technology, but invention, really new invention. There are not so many new inventions.
Yeah, because new inventions take a lot of time.
Yeah.
To produce a lot of R&D, which we've done, Models 3, since 2018. So they do take a lot of time, and that's why I always ask these type of questions, because I attend a lot of events. I see a lot of technology companies up and coming, and then I see certain articles, and I go, "Okay, you have that type of tech." So yeah, that's always one of my key questions. We don't have that problem, but some people do.
No, me, I don't give any lessons to anybody. That's really not my point of view. I'm just here to share my experience around this thema. I'm not giving lessons. I know that I don't know anything. Never. I don't know anything. I want the people to convince me that they have a better technology. That's always the point.
Cool. Answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Okay, maybe one last question before we close, because it's almost 2. Do we have another question on the line?
Yeah, you guys here?
Hello, Eunice.
Hi, Thierry.
Ah, Eunice.
So, yeah, I have a question.
Cool avatar.
Thank you. It's Loom AI, so it's a free app, kind of cool. Using AI, actually, but real AI. So, my question, because, yeah, I know exactly this topic of deep tech, and I submitted yesterday for the European Innovation Council more than 40 million of EU requests for my 6 clients, including one in Luxembourg, doing super cool stuff. And so my question is, how do you deal with, now, I think that the news, the journalism needs a complete disruption, a complete upgrade. We cannot just digitize the old model, we need a new model. And just look at the deepfakes. If you do the test, have you tried this test, Thierry? Like you have 10 or 20 videos, and you have to say, is it real or is it fake? Was it artificially created by a program with AI? The deepfakes, I sent the link for people who don't know what deepfakes is, the fake videos. It's becoming more and more subtle, like impossible for a human to detect. So how do you manage that as a journalist? And what are your advice for us, the common citizen and common people?
For citizens, it's very complicated. I think, I don't know how to translate it in English, but because I'm French, so maybe I can say just 2 words in French. It's bon sens. Bon sens.
Common sense.
Bon sens, common sense, yes. Common sense is, for me, it's the root of everything. That means if you have something that is too surprising, because deepfakes, you often use deepfakes to, for example, to ask Obama to say all what he could say about Trump. So, for example, I saw this video where Obama is explaining incredible things. Yeah. If you see incredible things, there's a problem. Politicians, they are not behave like this. Okay, sometimes like Trump, it's a special case, but in main of the situations, politicians, they are quite polite. They don't talk a lot about the other politicians. They prefer to say, okay, Macron is not taking the good decision, but it's never going. It's never worse than this. Huh? So if you see a video where you are really surprised by the words, by the sense, that means there is something difficult. And
do you remember what they did with Mark Zuckerberg? So he said he's not going to ban that. So they did a deepfake of Mark Zuckerberg and they published it so that he could not actually. So he was tricked in his own game.
Yeah. If you want to talk about this, you have to come back to an old book. Raymond Smullyan. It's an American mathematician, and he wrote something about.
In the chat?
Yeah, about, I will send you the link. He was writing about mathematical logic. And with this, you're right, you can build a lot of model where everything that you will publish will be considered as true. It's a question of postmodern truth. It's a really difficult topic. For me, we have to come back to humanity. You have to come back to humanity. Every time you come back to human, to a single human, you win.
And I completely agree with all the things you said about more diversity. I think we are biased in some countries, and including Luxembourg, with too many. It's too much. It's too homogeneous. We need more diversity.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Eunice. So we are almost at the end of our event. I like that we finished on more humanity, being more human. I think it makes sense. So. What I will keep in my mind, if I have to sum up the discussion, is first, when approaching you, is about being true, giving information, giving fact, explaining. So even before trying to sell the press release, start by who am I, what am I doing, why I'm doing it, what is the technology in a simple way. And then it's about also building the relationship. So not just reaching at you for one article, but reaching at you for start the discussion that might lead to some press relation.
Yeah, even when it's not so agréable, hein? So
yes,
sometimes it can be very tense, but it's like this, it's life.
Okay, great. Well, Thierry, thank you so much for having us today and share all your insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'm giving back the mic to Anthony. Thank you so much.